We are glad to be starting a new show here on Pod TV. Doing Justice Brings Joy with my good friend Stella Adams. So I'm looking forward to a great conversation and a lot of the things that she'll be bringing to the forefront around uh, justice and around political activism and around a number of other things that I know that she is involved with. She's been a longtime friend, and I'm looking forward to this show joining our cadre of shows here on the network because I know that she'll do a great job and all along those lines. So I'm going to turn it over to Stella Adams and the host of Doing Justice Brings Joy for her premiere episode. So I'm going to turn it over to her and see how great a job she's going to do because I have no doubt that she's going to bring us a lot of great information and folks are definitely looking forward to hearing about it from throughout the world because this is a global network. So Stella, glad that you're here and joining our conversation and being one of our newer shows. So looking forward to hearing all the great things that you've got to say, both about the city that we both love, which is Durham, North Carolina, as well as things that are going on in the nation and around the world. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and we'll definitely be monitoring what's going on. But I know you've got some great guests lined up, and I know that one of them is a longtime friend of mine that we're hoping to hear from later on in this episode, which is DJ Gianna Freeman and everything like that. But definitely looking forward to hearing all the great things you've got going on. But I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Mark, and I appreciate the opportunity to appear here on Pod TV. It's a great start, and I'm really excited about it. Welcome, everybody, to the premiere episode of Doing Justice Brings Joy. I am your host, Stella Adams, and I am a Bible toting, scripture quoting, social justice warrior queen. Get that straight off the bat. I'm also known as the Fair Housing Diva, and as a activist, as well as an advocate. But we're going to talk about everything here on this channel. We're going to be doing it through a lens that is Black focused, but universal in terms of the justice that we seek. But we will be looking at it through the prism of Blackness and its intersectionality with all the other isms that impact our community. Um, we're also going to be dealing with things from the social justice ministry perspective. Um, and so we're going to be discussing how we deal with homelessness and hunger, clean and safe drinking water. Um, we're going to talk about my thing, right? Affordable housing and affordable health care and child care. So we're going to be talking about the care economy and what impacts that care economy at the local, the state, and national level. We're going to talk about fair wages. We're going to talk about justice system reforms and the protection, the protection of civil and human rights and liberties. And that's for all people globally and locally. But you start things here at home. This podcast gets its title from Proverbs 21:15, which states that doing justice brings joy to the righteous, but terror to the ones who do evil. Joy to the righteous, but terror to the ones who do evil. And that's what this podcast is about, joy and for the righteous. And I hope you will join me each week as we explore different things and topics. Some of the topics are going to affect people locally. Some of the topics will affect people regionally, some globally. And I'm going to bring in experts. I'm going to bring in my friends. We're going to have a conversation. But this really won't work if you're not chatting with me in being part of the conversation. I'm going to share with you current events, discuss things that are important to you. I don't want to just be making up stuff and talking about things that I think are interesting. I want to answer the questions. I want to explore the issues that concern you. Hi. Thank you for joining me, Miss Jones. I appreciate you. I also want to figure out for us, I want us to talk about things from a very different perspective. I want to talk to the tree shakers, the pie bakers, and those that eat the pie. But our goal of this show is to try to make sure, how do we get a seat at the table and not a crumb, but a slice of that pie. And so that's what we're going to be, that's our goal. This is about doing justice, not just talking about it. So there will always be something for you to do and something that enhances your opportunities in these shows. And it's not just going to be for you to sign a petition or be a clicktivist. This is about getting you off the click button and out into the streets, straight up. This is, but not to get in the streets to be carrying a sign, but to be in the face, speaking truth to power, to get change. When we talk about power, I'm reminded that power is work over time. That's science. That's science. Ask a physics major. Ask your high school student that's taking science what the formula for power is. The formula for power is work over time. Nothing is instant soup. Nothing is instant if you want to make lasting change. You get instant change, you get instant change back. Long-lasting change takes time. It's work over time. And the time to work is now. There's an adage that says that knowledge is power. And so we have to preserve power. We're going to share power. We're going to share knowledge on this channel. I was reminded by one of my followers that sometimes I'm a little too technical. I get a little 50 Cent with my words and start talking in jargon. Y'all check me on that and put a comment in there saying, break it down. I am always willing to break something down so you can understand it. But I promise you, I will never dumb it down. I will break it down, but I will never dumb it down. I will never disrespect you in that way. But I know there's some phrases and stuff that people are kicking around now that I'm like, what? I have no idea. I'm going to have millennials and Zs and all kinds of folks on this channel. It's not just going to be oriented from my perspective. I'm going to have a man on the streets going out, and he's going to take 3-minute interviews with people, asking them the questions that are impacting their lives. So this is how this show is going to go in the future. If you have suggestions for folks you want to see on the show, I don't care who they are, let me know. While these initial shows are focused on Durham, the Triangle, the state of North Carolina, I am also a national and global person, and I have resources that reach beyond the borders of North Carolina, beyond the borders of our country, and beyond our continent into other continents, both Europe and Africa and Asia. And so I will be inviting people from those different perspectives. We will have in an upcoming episode a panel that are going to discuss the impact of the new administration's immigration policies and executive orders and what impact they're having on the Haitian community the last week of January. That's the new administration states that they're going to be dealing with immigration from day one, which is January 20th. And so by the time we speak with our panel on January 30th, there should be, we should be able to document the impact of those initial efforts by the administration. We are going to be focused, again, everything is through a Black prism. It doesn't mean I don't care about other people, and it doesn't mean I'm not going to bring other people in. But I want us to focus, we're going to focus on the impact that the immigration policies have on Haitians and on people from the African diaspora. That'll be the focus that we have here. The solutions that are offered should be universal in their usage. We need to protect all immigrants who are under attack. And I'm going to have folks from all the immigrant communities that wish to participate in our program. But the panel and the lens that we're going to look at it through is that lens that comes from, is the lens that comes from the experience of our Haitian and African diaspora members who are impacted by these policies. The Congress is about, so we're going to switch and do some updates on the news and things that are going on right now. As we're here on this podcast, we have folks on the House floor getting ready to vote for Speaker of the House. And we're looking to see, will Speaker Johnson retain his seat? If he does, I'll give you a live update on that. From a news perspective, this week has been, this year has been pretty tragic and traumatic. We had a terrorist attack in New Orleans. We had the attacker was U.S. Army veteran who had been at Fort Liberty or Fort Bragg, depending on your age, and he had served in that, and he lived in our community. He served in the National Guard. He was honorably discharged, but I work closely with the National Association of American Veterans, which is, and we really have not served the needs of our veterans who have served in combat zones, and he had served in Afghanistan. We have not taking care of their mental health needs. We have not provided for them, and they have, as they have served in our country. And we're seeing high rates of suicide, distorted perspectives about our country and our people. And so this tragedy that occurred in New Orleans that took the lives of 15 people and injured another 30 people, I ask us to take a moment to pray for the people in New Orleans, to pray for the people in Las Vegas, where there was another terror attack. Let's pray that we provide adequate mental health services to people across our nation, but particularly to those who are first responders, who are our veterans, who stand on the wall to protect us and our rights. So the nurses and doctors who also are traumatized on a daily basis by tragedies, let's keep them all in our prayers. Thank you so much for indulging me with that. Other news, the Congress, I'm sitting here watching for the vote. Will the Republicans select a speaker today, or will it take 4 days like it did last year or the year before last? Nothing can happen in the House, nothing, including the certification of the election on January 6th. Nothing can happen until there's a speaker. So if they don't elect a speaker today or over the weekend, come Monday, there will be no new Congress, because the congressmen are not sworn in until officially sworn in until noon on Monday. They can't vote on carry out any business until there is a speaker. So this could be fun. We know that one person is not supporting him. There are about a dozen Republicans who are not happy, but have not officially voted against him. Once I'm looking at the TV and I see Marjorie Taylor Greene caucusing with some people. They don't look happy. They look to be fussing with each other. So this is exciting. So will there be two, and will that cause chaos? So this is going to be fun. This has implications here in North Carolina. Our new governor, Josh Stein, has signed an executive order that I think is interesting. He's setting up a new division to take care of victims of Hurricane Helene. in separating that and putting that in the Department of Commerce to deal with the hurricane in the western part of the state. But he's left the North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resiliency responsible for the hurricane victims in the eastern part of the state. So remember my prism. Remember my prism. We've got 635 families who have been denied funds, or the funds ran out, or the funds were misappropriated. Whatever happened, there are 635 families from Matthew and Florence that have not received their aid and have been cut off from the temporary aid by this North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resiliency. They're still stuck in that system while a new program is being set up to deal with the western part of the state and their hurricane. The General Assembly has fussed about and rightfully is angered and found that the Department of Recovery and Resiliency had failed in its duty to these families and to these victims, yet they made no provision to make these victims whole. And I don't need to say it out loud, but I will. I'm very concerned that the majority of the 635 impacted families in the East are Black or brown. They were late to get access to the funds. Some of them even had to sue to get access to the funds because they had air property and there were concerns about that. So how these families have been waiting, some for 10, 12 years. Only to find out once they finally got approved, finally got permits, that there ain't no money. But we're going to make sure that the same incompetent folks at the North Carolina Resiliency and Recovery folks don't have nothing to do with the recovery efforts in the West. But we didn't transfer these 635 families to the new entity to take care of them. We're leaving them in the hands of the people who have abused them for these past decades. Something just ain't hitting me right on that. I'm gonna keep my eye on that. This is advocate activist Stella mode. This is not your podcast host. This is my doing something. Trust me. I'm going to be looking to see what happened, and I'm going to be fighting for those 635 impacted families in the East. And I'm going to bring some folks from Eastern North Carolina to talk about that early in February. Yes, I said it. What y'all going to do? This is my show. So here in North Carolina, we swore in our new governor. We swore in, actually, I know a lot of these people. And I'm pretty excited about that. Maybe they'll come on our show. Hey, y'all, hint, hint. Our new governor, Josh Stein, I've known him since he was in college. Lieutenant Governor Rachel Hunt, she's the daughter of our forever governor, Jim Hunt, the original member of the Democracy. Attorney General Jeff Jackson. Jeff Jackson is coming out of Charlotte, and he is a brilliant lawyer. And the General Assembly really stripped away so many of the powers that the authority that the governor, lieutenant governor, and the attorney general had as they were walking out the door. They decided to throw a match in and burn the house down. They've altered election laws. They've made it mandatory that the attorney general defend their crazy, and he's not allowed to go against them or to let those things that are unlawful, unconstitutional stand. They have they're about to create havoc with our election system. The election, our county boards and our state board of elections, and this is where y'all have to stop me if I'm getting, if I need to break it down to you. The state board of elections was comprised of 5 people, and your local boards are comprised of 5 people. And the governor's party gets 3 and the opposition party gets 2. So if this were operating as normal, you'd have 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans, and the members are appointed by the parties. And then, and usually it is not an issue. It doesn't have any impact. The boards operate impartially, and most decisions are unanimous. In the 2022, I think, election, maybe the 2020 election, there was some shenanigans about certifying ballots, certifying election, maybe in 2020, where some of the Republican appointees refused to certify the election. This then ended up with 3-2 vote, and so the majority party won. So the General Assembly decided to fix a problem that wasn't one, and what they've done is they have changed from a 5-member board with a 3-2 split down to a 4-member board with 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. And if there's a tie, the decision is to be made by the General Assembly. Yeah. Think about that. Think about that. So let's take something for real. Allison Riggs was elected to the state Supreme Court by around 700 votes. The Republicans went before the state board of election and said, no, there's 60,000 votes we want you to throw out. And by a 3-2 vote, they didn't get thrown out. Under this new scheme, it would be a 2-2 vote. And then the General Assembly would decide, which is Republican controlled. They throw out those votes and give the election to the Republican candidate, even though he did not win. The ramifications of this are startling. There are going to be lawsuits. They've already been filed. There's going to be tried. We're going to keep up with it. But what I'm saying to you is that your votes matter, and we're going to fight to protect your votes. I'm going to bring folks on to talk to you about that. I'm going to ask my friends, acquaintances, and partners in crime that are part of the Council of State now. And I'm talking about Governor Josh Stein, Lieutenant Governor Rachel Hunt, Attorney General Jeff Jackson, Secretary of State Elaine Marshall, and State Superintendent of Public Instruction Mo Green to come on my program and talk to me about what's going on, talk to you about what's going on in our communities. I'm also hoping that I can get Ag Commissioner Steve Troxler, who I've known for decades when I was on the Soil and Water, Durham Soil and Water Conservation District. He and I were friends back when he was just a soil and water supervisor. Now he's our state's ag commissioner. So I'm going to have him come and talk to us about the ag bill and about what the hurricanes did to our farms in the West and what the drought is doing. So y'all need to know these things, what the drought is doing to our farms in the East. So I hope he'll come and speak with me too. Hint, hint. This will be bipartisan because the information, we need it. And then I want to talk to y'all also. This is a state and local issue, and I'm hoping by the time I finish talking to you, my guests will be able to join us. But if not, we'll just keep talking. But did you all know that there are over 14,700 unfilled jobs with the state of North Carolina? Let me run that by you one more again. 14,700 unfilled jobs within the state of North Carolina. The overall vacancy rate for the state for state jobs is 20%. Only 80% of all the jobs in the state are filled. But if you're in the Department of Health and Human Services or in the Department of Corrections, that number is only 75% of those jobs are filled. Now, I went and looked to see what the problem was because, there people out here need jobs. So I'm telling y'all, go and look and see if there's a job near you that you might be interested in. But what I found was a great many of these jobs don't pay poverty wages. And if you have, and they require degrees, many of them require master's degrees and are starting at $45,000 a year. No. The private sector that's not even close to what you would make with the master's degree. What we are paying teachers and is just a sin and a shame. So I took a look at the job openings and the starting pay. And I looked at 998 jobs. I looked at every one of them. And most of the jobs that are in the Triangle area, the income is between 40 and 50% of the area median income, which means that they are considered by HUD extremely low income. Let me repeat. Most of the state jobs in the Triangle area, the income for those jobs would be at 40 to 50% of area median income, and considered by HUD to be extremely low income. So when we're talking about affordable housing, HUD subsidized affordable housing, we're talking about housing that's between 60 and 80% of the area median income, and folks don't want that. So you're talking about your city, your state employees, your pink collar workers, your blue collar workers, your white shirted workers in state government cannot afford to live in affordable housing that's being built, and nobody wants to build it. The city of Raleigh spent more money on a dog park than they spent on affordable housing. Bond. Check it. I'm not making that up. The bond for the dog park was more than they set aside for affordable housing in Raleigh. And that was to me at 60% of income. And remember, these state employees that live in Wake County, they're at 40 to 50% of the area median income. How are we supposed to depend on folks to protect us, to build our infrastructure, to make sure our roads are safe, to make sure our bridges are safe, to make sure that those who commit crimes against our person are and protect our personhood and property? How are we supposed to depend on folks who we don't value? They say you value what you put your money and your time in. We have the same issue, the same problems facing us at the local level. I want to say that Deidreana is here, and I'm going to talk to her about what we can do at the state level. After we come, we're going to listen to a music video, I think, Mark, and then I'll have Deidreana Freeman, our city council member from Durham, North Carolina, to join us to talk about this, the wage and salary and affordable housing issues facing the people of Durham. Mark? Deidreana? Okay.
Yeah, it's home. It's the Bull City. They tell tales of a city built on tobacco, a bull so hard to lasso. Decades of smoke, just a rise from the ash though. That's what we do. Do Durham means doing you. From Eagles on Lawson Street to the Devils in Duke Blue. We're fluent and inclusive and we speak progressive great. Master and manufacture, PhD and innovate. Where ideas liberate and Broadway comes to stage. And on any given day, hit the bull and the stake. It's the home of James Shepard, Spalding, John Merrick. Black Wall Street, the legacy we inherit. From Haytide to Walltown, research the underground. Eno to Jordan, all people our town. We even pioneer life-saving medication over a craft beer, and the best food you tasted is Durham. The H is silent, the A too. Speak with a southern drawl, say y'all and bruh too. It's the Bull City. Please allow me to welcome you. There'll be much time for talk, but in Durham we just do. The Bull City, please allow me to welcome you. There'll be more time for talk, but in Durham we just do.
Deidreana? Councilwoman Freeman, are you with me?
Uh-oh. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
In Durham, we just do, and you have been working so hard today. How was the street naming for our mayor, former Mayor Bill Bell today?
It was great. It was great. It was a good turnout, and today is his 84th birthday, so it was a great happy birthday celebration.
All right, happy birthday, Mayor Bell. I just want to thank you for taking out time to be my very first guest. And there's a lot to talk about, and we've got some time, so I'm just going to get right into it. Councilmember Freeman, I was sharing with the audience before the break that 20% of state jobs across the state are vacant. And I believe there's a similar problem right here in Durham. And I know the city council took some measures to address it, but what can we do to really address the wages, the vacancy rate, and create some workforce housing so that people that work in Durham can live in Durham?
Oh my goodness, that's a loaded question. There's a number of things in there. I would say on the policy side, for the city of Durham, we've been working really hard to remove requirements like driver's license or CDL license where it's not necessary. And then there's also like in the more administrative jobs where a college degree is not necessary. There used to be a time where you could come straight out of high school and do an administrative job. I think many of the students and children in our school system today have a far advanced knowledge of technology. They don't need a college degree to do administrative, work. And so that could be one way. And then I know for some folks who've been justice involved, understanding how the school to prison pipeline works, being sure that we're being mindful of the impacts of that for people who have been formerly justice involved and not just excluding them from the pool, I think would be helpful. And then on the other side, figuring out how to support our smaller businesses and raising their wages. I think many of our local businesses that have done the heavy lift of, trying to make sure that they have livable wages are facing really critically hard times right now. And so getting folks to support those small businesses, whether they're restaurants or CPA or, an attorney's office or a doctor's office, a dentist's office, like we got to really make sure that we're pouring in and using our resources locally. I think those are a few things that come to mind immediately, but you know that these are all like the long, hard conversations we have to have about what wages are and what they're tied to in labor for this country. And so we've got a lot of work to do.
Absolutely. What is the city doing on the affordable housing? And when I say affordable housing, I'm really talking about workforce housing front. How do we make sure that folks that work for the city and the county can live in the city and the county?
I would say that there's a lot we can do. We are not right now. I have been kind of a minority vote in some of the conversations around new development. But I think for existing development, as long as our state doesn't allow for us to implement, things like PRIP, which was pushed back on by the state legislature. If we
can't break that down. What is PRIP?
Oh gosh, hold on. I have to pull it up. PRIP was a pre-rental inspection program. And so we were trying to make sure that our local renters, our property owners who were renting, were actually renting safe properties, and making sure that they signed up with us as a city to rent those out, and at least to have some conversation and dialogue about making sure that they were at least at basic safe and then affordable secondly. And so not having the levers that we need in place to pull is a big hindrance. And so as we move forward, we've got to be really creative in how we bring on new development, because that's the only real lever we have with zoning and planning. And so as those new developers come in, if they're not offering, at least 5% of affordable housing, we're not really making a dent in what new housing we're making available. We're making a whole lot of housing available at market rate, but that's not bringing the prices down enough for people who live here to stay here. And so we're losing a lot of residents. I think there's been a lot of conversation about how, we get 20 new residents every month. And then on the flip side of it, if we lose 18 who were lower wealth, lower means, what does that say about us as a city? And so there are a lot of great things happening, but we got to be mindful that if we're not putting the right pieces in place to support those who are most vulnerable, we're going to lose them. We're going to keep losing them.
And when we lose our residents, we're really losing a lot of our historic
the fabric of our community.
The background,
multiple generations that have been here for a long time. When you think about the West End and how it was developed, coming down from Stagville, having that one, former enslaved person purchase all of those acres of land, and then making sure that kind of essentially making sure that everyone got their piece in there. There was a long history of especially Black property owners, and we've lost a large swath of them to a lot of the development, and mainly like 147, and not like private development, more city government development. On both fronts, whether it's private or public, if we're not doing what we need to make sure that we're like just giving folks a little bit of a way into the market, to make sure that they can rent or own, we're not doing our job. And so with our hands tied by the legislature, I'm hopeful that we'll find some innovative ways to do just that. And I know that my colleagues on council agree on the ends, but not always the way. So.
Yeah.
I apologize. I haven't been trying to get my Chrome to update because apparently it's not working, so that I can show.
That's all right. We've got you're looking good. We got you here. And the main thing is we need to hear what you're saying.
Yes, that is the main thing.
So,
but I heard you in the workforce housing, and I think that as I have worked, I've tried to push at a regional level, trying to make sure that not just Durham is pushing at our state level, but also at the federal or national level to make sure that we're implementing better resources to make workforce housing available. I will say that in the newest federal the newest federal grant for transportation, there are dollars that have been added based on an equity lens to address some of the community needs. And some of that should come up, but folks have got to use those grants. They've got to go after those grants and use those dollars to engage the community and really dig in.
Well, that's going to be on our to-do justice list of things to do. One thing I want to talk to you about before we run out of time is we recently passed the Parks and Recreation Bond and the Streets and Sidewalk Bond, yes. Both of which, are really important to me, especially the Street and Sidewalk Bond.
Yeah.
But what wasn't covered in there, and wanted to know if you could give us some background on what's going on with the 6 parks where the lead was found. I know the city council put in the budget last year, $5 million?
Yes.
But I saw that the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality said it's going to take $10 million to remediate those parks. So what's the plan to get that extra $5 million done?
And I'm glad you said that, because I do need to follow up with our Parks and Rec director and our new city manager to figure out where they're going in this budget cycle, because that's going to be critically important to make sure that if it was $5 million last year and $5 million this year covers it. But we are going, I want to be clear, we are going to address it, because you cannot have those environmental hazards in our communities, especially for children who are critically hindered academically, developmentally by lead and those other metals that can be found in our parks, and those specific parts where it's way too high. I will say that the bond, as you brought it up, I think I made myself pretty clear, and I know we've had conversations about it. I was not as supportive as I would have been had we had the conversation about how we were going to address not just the parks, but just more of the infrastructure needs of our community, and that being, the health and wellness of our children should be most the highest priority. So I know that I'm not going to stop fighting or pushing or trying to make sure that we cover it. And I don't think there's anyone on our council that will prevent us from doing just that. So I don't have any worries about that. That I do know that I want to make sure that we're not doing it to the minimum. And so I've said that a number of times to folks. We need to make sure that it's not to the minimum, that it's actually to a standard that actually fits us here in Durham. We're progressive for a reason, and that progressiveness needs to be centering our needs, especially for our children.
And I'm so glad you said that, because that's so critically important to me. I started out talking about that we were going to be looking at things through the prism of Blackness and the historic discrimination, the sighting of the early sighting back in the day, the redlining of these neighborhoods, the intentionality of putting those poisons in our neighborhoods. The city has to remediate, and it can't be the last thing on the list. It has to be prioritized. Before there's a new tennis court in a new development, there needs to be remediation in Walltown.
And I would say the great thing about this city is just how overflowing we are with capital, I want to say, and that we can do both. We can do the tennis courts and we can remediate those parks, because herein lies exactly what you're saying with the environmental injustice is the land that's near the most toxic areas, the incinerators, the dry cleaners, all the areas that no one wanted, the cement plants that no one wanted to live in. That's the land that was made available to people who look like you and me. Mm-hmm. And making sure that they're, the toxicity level of it, whether it's lead or those chemicals, whether it's PFAS or whether it's like there's so many ingrained racist like parts of this conversation that we have had, but the solution side is the money. And that's the reparative work that needs to happen in our capital improvement plan. And so one of my priorities, I've been trying to answer some questions from some folks in the community and trying to figure out, one of my priorities is around making sure that we fund the capital improvement plans, because that is where we put the money to do those types of projects. When we don't fund our capital improvement plans, it just kicks the can down the road. And so things like those sidewalks, repairs to bridges, roads. I mean, I'm talking about bridges and parks. There was a park in my neighborhood just down the street where it was like a cliff where if any of the kids were over there, they could get hurt, like severely hurt, and probably, I mean, fatally injured if they fell over there. And the fact that it sat on the CIP for a number of years was really frustrating to me. So, which is why I started pushing so hard to make sure that we fund, like every year. I've been on council 7 years now. Every year, my first priority is the CIP. What's in the CIP? What can we get funded? And how can we move it forward? I want to make sure that we use a lens of equity, knowing that there's reparative justice work that needs to happen in our infrastructure. That is city related. That is specific to the people of this city. They pay their taxes. They should be safe. They should be healthy baseline supports in place. And so I really try to push around those areas to ensure that we have the funding to do those things. The other thing I will say is that there are about, I'm trying to think, I'll leave that for a later comment. But that I appreciate you entering into the conversation around the prism of Blackness, knowing that for all the years of hardship and hard harms that Black people have so far to go in having that reparative justice that they deserve, or that we deserve. And so
we're going to be struggling. We're going to be fighting for that here on our show. I want to thank you. I'm running up on time, but I want to thank you for being my first guest, and I'm hoping you're going to be one of my frequent guests. Hint,
I can surely come back. I apologize. I know that I didn't know that this event for the renaming was happening, because I know when we spoke, I was hoping to be here the full hour. So I definitely will come back, and definitely all about sharing more information. And I would love to have more of a deeper conversation about that workforce housing, because we can do this. We can
do this. And that's what this show is about. It's about doing what we need to do as a community. How do we have your back? One of the things is that I'm going to be encouraging people to send comments to you all at the city council, to appear at city council meetings, not just for the big meetings, but for the small. So, and thank you all. Thank you so much for everything you do, all the fights you fight for us every day, and your personal commitment to restorative, reparative justice and racial healing that you do in your ministry and that you do in your day-to-day work. I just want to commend you for that. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. You are a leader in your own rights, and I follow whenever you call.
Thank you. Well, folks, this has been our first episode, and we want to thank Council Member Deidreana Freeman with the Durham City Council. Thank you all for participating. I want to encourage you to send your comments, to contact me. Tell me what topics you want to talk about, and I'll see you at the same time, same station, next Friday here on Doing Justice Brings Joy.